If we could we give just a couple minutes? And I know Nick Hacker's real close to getting here. He's going to participate from BSC. Good morning.
It's a chair.
This room's great because you can hear you from anywhere.
Right.
It's straight across from you,
Right.
Chancellor.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's unmuted now, so.
I like space, sorry.
All right.
Chair Morton, Nick Hacker has joined us at BSC.
Very good. Let's get started. Let's call the meeting to order. Would you like to call roll, Christie?
Board Chair Morton,
Here.
Ms. Nesset, Mr. Hacker,
Yep.
Dr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Ms.
Here.
Thornton,
Here.
Ms. Louders, Mr. Wakeford,
Andy's here.
Dr. Pruis,
Yeah.
Ms. Louders, are you on the line? Okay, BSC. Dan?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm here for Dr. Spokane.
DSU? Lake Region?
Corey Kenner filling in for Dr. Darling.
Mayville?
Here.
Minot?
Good morning. This is Steve Shirley.
DCB?
Good morning. Jerry Migler here.
NDSCS?
Morning, everyone. This is John Richmond.
NDSU?
Dean Brashani here, and Jared Melville on behalf of the Student Association.
Thank you. UND?
If Mark Kennedy, Jed Shivers, and Nancy Vogelstead home.
Valley City? Williston?
Good morning. John Miller.
Thank you. Here at BSC, we have the Chancellor, we have Tammy, Phil, Laura, Carol, Billy Joe, Chris, Katie, myself. We already know Jared's on the phone. Deborah Dragseth has joined us at BSC. Is Cole Kruger on the phone?
Christy, this is Andy. I don't think Cole is joining us yet.
Okay, thank you. How about Rick Tonder? Darren King?
Good morning, Christy. Darren's here.
Okay, and Terry Meyer?
Christy, we have myself in the office and Dave Kresbach.
Okay, and from the AG's office, we have Chris Pesky, Eric Olson. Is there anyone else on the line?
Jay Sealer with Governor Bergen's office is here.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, before we get started with business, let me just remind everybody of good conference call etiquette. It's easy to multitask and very appropriate to multitask on conference call, but if you do, it's critical that you put your phone on mute. Right now, there are people shuffling papers, and that gets picked up. So when you're not speaking, if you put your phone on mute, that will make this call a lot smoother. Is that, hopefully everybody can remember that. And there's still people that are shuffling, there's still some background noise. If there's background noise, that means someone doesn't have their phone on mute. Before we get started, I would like to introduce Eric Olson. He's our new attorney for the North Dakota University system. Eric went to undergrad at Gustavus Adolphus. He went to law school at the Georgetown University Law Center. He's been in private practice with Locke Hutchinson, TLT in Minneapolis, and with Parnell Golden Gregory in Washington, D.C. His specialty is business and litigation. Welcome, Eric. It's great to have you here. Also would like to thank Chris Pesky for his work. We kept him busy during his short time, and for continuity purposes, Chris will remain as legal counsel for the audit committee. And with that, we like to start the meeting, and we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would move a motion, Casey.
Is there a second?
Chair Morton, Nick Hacker here. Can we amend that motion? I would suggest and request that we move item E to regular board business and remove it from the consent agenda.
Yes, if there's we'll need a motion and a second.
This is Casey again. I would make that motion to remove it, agenda item 4E.
Second.
Okay, this is moved and seconded. Any discussion? Call the roll, please, Christy.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes?
Ms. Thornton? Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Louders, are you on the line? Board Chair Morton?
Yes. With that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Are there any other items that there's a motion to remove from the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, Nick Hacker, I'll move the consent agenda.
Seconded by Trainer.
Any discussion? I'll just remind people that all the information is there to read, and we know that everyone can read, so that really saves us some time. Hearing no discussion, call the roll, please.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes?
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
Ms. Louders? Board Chair Morton?
Yes. Okay, we will move to board business. Do we want to do the Ray Richards Golf Course first, Christy, or what's the appropriate?
Yes,
Or do we move?
that would probably make
Do we
it,
move that, or do we move that to item 10?
I think it would simplify things if we did it right away.
Okay. I will turn it over to Nick then.
Mr. Chair, the University of North Dakota has requested some delay on this item. They're looking at a more holistic approach to what they may intend to do at the Ray Richards Golf Course, and are not prepared to sell the golf course at this moment in time. And so they had reached out and asked for some more time. For that reason, we have pulled it aside.
Chair Martin,
Yes.
this is Dan Trainer. I move to table discussion of the sale of the Ray Richards Golf Course until the December meeting of the state board.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second?
Second, Casey.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes?
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
Board Chair Morton?
Yes. Okay, we will move to board business. Item number 6.
Good morning, everyone. This is Katie Fitzsimmons. I'm filling in for Lisa Johnson today to submit the North Dakota State University's Stage 2 request to terminate the SBHE program in New Media and Web Design, the zip code 09.0702. Students were not admitted to this program after the summer of 2018. Any existing students have been advised into a similar program of study and/or advised regarding course substitutions and coursework available from Tri-College. The Academic Affairs Council had no issues with this at their October 3rd meeting. They voted unanimously to recommend approval of the Stage 2 request for review by the Chancellor's Cabinet and advance to the State Board for approval or denial. Do you have any other questions? I'll try to field those at this time, but all the information is attached to the agenda.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Casey, I would move approval.
Is there a second?
Nick Hacker, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Board Chair Morton?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 7. We need to elect a vice chair of the board.
Chair Morton, this is Casey. I would move that Nick Hacker be elected as Vice Chair of the Board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded by Trainer.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chair Morton, I appreciate the confidence to move into this position and look forward to working with you and the Chancellor.
Thank you, Nick. I would also like to, just for context, historically, we've always allowed the board chair to select the vice chair. I did reach out to Nick several months ago. He agreed to serve, and I think we're going to have a great vice chair. I appreciate his willingness to get involved in board leadership. It is more of a time commitment, but it's really nice to have a vice chair who lives in Bismarck too. But Nick just has so much experience with the budget and finance. He's a former legislator, and so he brings so much to our board, and it would be great to have him in a leadership role. Any other further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the Chancellor, I just want to echo your comments. People don't realize Nick takes many phone calls and text messages from me. There was a last legislative session. He's doing incredible work on new innovative ways on emerging technology, working with former Governor Schaefer in the governor's office and legislators, and just way beyond what really we could expect. And the fact he'd want to volunteer to be the vice chair, again, I just want to thank them for that. So.
Thank you.
From the faculty perspective, I really appreciate how much Nick has fought for our budget, and every time he said something that was positive for the faculty. So I would definitely be in favor for that, and we do want to see that vote.
Thank you. Anyone else? Someone needs to mute their phone. Someone needs to mute their phone. There's a lot of paper being shuffled.
Chair, the problem we have technically here in the big room, we've got about 15 people. We don't have control of a mute button, so I was shuffling my papers, I confess. I apologize.
But Chair Morton, it's also probably the ventilation system at BSC that you're hearing.
Okay, call the roll, please, for the vice chair vote.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
Mr. Hacker?
Abstain.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Board Chair Morton?
Yes. We will move on to
Congratulations.
item 8. And so I just would tell people in the room, if we can't mute, hold off on the multitasking. Thank you. Item 8. Lisa?
Good morning again, Katie in place of Lisa. This is for policy 403.1, It's been rewritten to combine policies 403.1 program approval, 403.1.1 program termination, and 403.1.3 inactive programs. Policies 403.1.1 and 403.1.3 would be deleted. Members of the Academic Affairs Council have worked closely with the North Dakota University System staff to streamline program approval, including board guidance associated with program termination and the inactivation of the programs prior to termination. The intent is to collapse 3 individual policies into one single policy so that individuals don't have to look in multiple locations with redundant language to make a program change. Similarly, the Academic Affairs Council streamlined the corresponding procedures, moving some of the culminating level of approval to the Chancellor's Cabinet with quarterly updates to the State Board or the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. On October 3rd, the Academic Affairs Council voted unanimously to recommend approval for review by the Chancellor's Cabinet and advance to the State Board for approval or denial. I'd put this forward to the Board right now for their consideration.
We'll take all of item 8 on one vote. You want to go to the, or is that it?
That'd be great.
Oh, okay. Is there a motion?
Casey,
Is there a second?
Second, McCacker.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on item 8? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Trainer,
Yes.
Ms. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Hacker,
Yes?
Dr. Ryan,
Yes.
Board Chair Morton,
Yes. Thank you. Moving to item number 9, Chancellor.
Yes, thank you, Chair Morton. So this is the second reading for the policy on, probably better known as tenure for the presidents who had previously been faculty members. So I would want to caveat right up front that there had been discussion of a very broad tenure policy that all presidents would get tenure. There are some states that do that. In fact, there's a very interesting debate in higher education, inside higher ed. One of the presidents was able to actually find that we discussed that some colleges do, in fact, award tenure to people who did not previously ever have tenure. But this policy is much more modest than that. This is focused on just being consistent with how we treat outsiders, so to speak, and insiders. Currently, if you're a faculty member in the North Dakota system and you begin to move up the ranks to eventually attain a leadership position as a president, you would be able to keep your tenure and be able to revert to that. However, I think, Dawn, as you said very colorfully, if you were a Nobel Prize winning professor, Medal of Honor winner, but you happen to be at Moorhead and then came over to NDSU or Wahpeton a few miles away, you could not bring tenure with you. So this just equalizes that. I think it's very much in the spirit of something I've seen the governor do very effectively on both the Workforce Development Council that just met yesterday and with the National Guard. We had a major meeting 2 weeks ago. Lieutenant Governor stayed for 8 hours, and that is identifying barriers to outsiders. It's amazing the barriers that have been constructed over the years in North Dakota, that if you're inside, you're treated one way, but if you're the spouse of a military person, it's like you can't even get certain jobs. And so they're looking at trying to identify these barriers. So this is an example of the board finding barriers to recruiting quality people from the outside, and this will give the board the option to give tenure, because the word says may. That's the operative word. The board may award tenure. My strong recommendation is that you would use this tool, but now with this policy change, you will have a policy that allows you to do that. But again, your hands are never tied should you find something in the record of an applicant that you would decide against it. So this now gives you that tool to help recruit and treat equally people from the outside willing to come here and serve in those leadership positions. So I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I do need to say something about that, David. I mean, you probably know that you got that letter from CCS on the topic. And there were several points of concern that the faculty were expressing. I think it is for 6 or 7 of them. The first one was money. We are in a time of limited resources, and if some president should decide to do that, depending on what their salary is right now and how many years they may be in service, that would be a good amount of money. I think the $500,000 that CPS put into that letter, of course, you can underestimate those dollars, always depends on the particular situation. Along those lines, other concerns were that spending money on a former president might disable a small department to hire other faculty. The president would go back to some department that would probably be part of the contract. I mean, they have to have a department in the college that they have tenure. And that might mean that some position that was vacant in that department may not be filled anymore. So that might depend on where the money comes from. It's something that just comes to my mind. If the president gets paid from the system office and not from departmental resources, that might make it a little bit, might help a little bit with that respect. And that's just a thought that hits me right now that is in run CPF. Something that I had picked up while talking to faculty, someone who said it's kind of ironic that the reason why the tenure policy was changed last year was because of picking, and now it's the Dickens president and benefits from it. And it wasn't anybody from Dickens who said that, and I don't think anybody wants him to not have tenure, but Dickens was the reason why we changed the tenure policy last year, and it wasn't very much in favor of the faculty. Another concern that I had discussed with Deborah was, yes, this would enable us to recruit and maintain better presidents. However, we have also made the point in the context of changing the tenure policy last year that we would like to recruit and retain good faculty, and the change to the tenure policy did not enable us to do that. So there are a few issues, and I think those are very justified concerns that the faculty have with that policy that I certainly needed to bring up here.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
This is Dan Trainer. I move approval.
Is there a second?
This is Casey. I'd like, before we vote on it, I'd like to have a little bit more clarification. If a president moves back to the faculty, they're not continued at a president's salary, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, my second question is, in reading the document that came from Dr. Dragstead, it seemed like this is not a uniform policy across the country, though in the Chancellor's report, it seems that it is a fairly standard policy. I'd just like some clarification of what is or isn't correct.
Yeah, this is the Chancellor. I suppose it could be a matter of, interpretation of the word widely, but we very much appreciate the letter from Dr. Dragsmith. She's here, and appreciate the give and take we have, and so we followed up on that, from the cabinet, and we have some articles, references, a leading article in Inside Higher Ed, echoed that giving tenure to former faculty members is quite a common practice, if you were between widely and common. But clearly giving tenure to presidents who never were in the faculty, that is pretty controversial. And that had been on the table at one point, but that is not the issue here. So, but glad to, yield the floor if Dr. Dragsmith wanted to say something on that. She's here, or if she wanted to wait till public comment. I defer to the chair how you wanted to proceed, sir.
Well, since we're going to vote, we should hear from Dr. Dragsmith.
Thank you. We did write a letter on October 17th, as Birgit highlighted. We had a Council of College Faculties meeting on October 9th after this came up as the first reading. If you recall last month, the thought was to bypass first reading, go to second reading and institute. So we sent a letter right away within a few days asking that normal procedure be followed, that it would be first reading and then come to this meeting for second reading, so at least we would have an opportunity as the Council of College Faculties, as a group representing the 11 campuses, to comment. So we did have that meeting on October 9th. All 11 campuses, which is very unusual, all 11 campuses agreed on one thing, and all 11 campuses felt that, I will guarantee you that's unusual, felt that it was a problematic situation. And the reasons, as Birgit put forth a couple of them, is undue financial burden if a faculty or a president was a president for a couple of years, say 54 to 56, decided to, your words, not mine, retreat back into faculty because of education is a war. The classroom is the front line. So we didn't, that was interesting. But the financial impact, if that former president decided, I'm sort of tired of all this travel, working with donors, maybe I'll just take the next 5 years and get a, we call it a vanity faculty position, a faculty position which may or may not be needed on that campus, even at a retreated salary of, say, $100,000 a year, which would be probably low given benefits and all that kind of thing, and did that for 5 years, that would be a $500,000 negative financial impact to a small campus like Lake Region maybe, or Dickens Estate, that may not have a $500,000, and if they did it for 10 years, it would be $1 million, and they may very well need Dollar City was music, right? They may very well need a music professor for the next 10 years, but there may not, and if there's not, that could be a potential problem. We also felt that a faculty member existing that wasn't quite tenured yet might lose his or her job to make room for that president. If the president hasn't taught or researched or done anything along those lines for a significant number of years, and is particularly teaching in a field that changes very quickly, that you might have someone that wouldn't be ready to teach in that particular field. We did question whether restoring tenure on presidents is common practice. You did give me, someone sent me the Inside Higher Ed article from 2015 written by Scott Jasik. There's one line in it that was highlighted, one line in the entire article that says such contract provisions are common for college and university presidents. That was the one line that I got. I did contact Scott and asked him about that article and where he got that information. There was no quantitative information. It was just his sense that it is done with four-year schools, so that was that. So we did question whether it was common practice. If the State Board of Higher Ed or the sitting president were to decide that he or she didn't want to be president anymore, the board didn't want that person to be president, we were skeptical that the person would make a compatible faculty member. It would also leave former presidents sort of around. I mean, there may be more than one or two. President emeriti at a small university, a new president comes in, and there's this given, pulling and pushing of former presidents around. And then that might be problematic to the peace of the university. People taking sides, or I like the way the old president did it better, or, he's still here, he or she. Then granting tenure status to presidents as of a prior date. What we did find was if presidents are granted tenure in a particular state, it's typically done at the time of hiring as a negotiating process. We were uncomfortable with, as the chancellor said, a tool to recruit. We don't see tenure as a perk. We see tenure as something that's very much part of our university process, and something that's earned over 7 years. At the bottom of our contract, it says that you're on probation for 7 years. I had 7 years of contracts. It said on the bottom I was a probationary employee until I got tenure. There's very few areas where you're on probation for 7 years. You might be on probation for 3 months or something at a company, but 7 years is something that we fight toward. The proposed changes affects, as I said, one of the cornerstones of a faculty position, which is tenure. Each institution has pre-established guidelines that govern the processes and criteria for granting tenure, and the question whether the proposed changes would honor those processes and criteria. So our final line, as a group, again, all 11 campuses, was that the council rejects the proposed changes to academic freedom and tenure policy 605.1. Thank you for letting me speak. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Chairperson Casey again. I have a real problem with a situation where you have tenure, there's controversy with the president, and not a good situation, and then if the person decides to go the tenure route, it does create some major difficulties both within the university or college and for the department. So it sounds to me like we need to spend a little more time with the Council of College faculty members and have some board members at least listen to them and figure out a way that we can make the policy one that is potentially beneficial for recruiting, but at the same time not a burden on the present faculty. So I guess right now I would say I would tend to say we should not approve it as it's being presented.
I would like to hear if do we have any of our presidents that do have tenure that have some thoughts on this?
Hi, this is Tom Mitchell from Dickinson State. The one thing I would say, and I do agree with some of the issues that can occur at smaller institutions, and I also agree that tenure is not a perk, it is something that is earned. The presidents who do have tenure have earned that tenure over the same process in the institution where they resided, and it is generally a seven-year odyssey to obtain that tenure, which can be seen really as a badge that has been earned or a merit that has been earned. And there is some thought as to why the tenure carries is that once tenure has been earned, it should not be something that can be taken away by the move from one institution to another. And that is where I will stand. I have a great deal of respect for what the faculty has brought forward, and I have a great deal of respect for the questions that have been brought forward by the State Board of Higher Education. I just wanted to put in that particular statement as to the earning of tenure has already been conducted by those presidents who have tenure. They've gone through that process, and it is something they have earned, which has now been taken away.
Thank you, President Mitchell.
Chancellor, this is Brian Van Horn from Mayville State University. When I started last year, I had asked this question as well, and this was a major factor for my decision to attend or to accept or not accept the position, because as you say, as Dr. Mitchell alluded to, the tenure process is laborious, and it's something to be very proud of. I would approach it from a little bit of a different angle, and that is it's so important for us for credentialing of faculty in today's day and time. I think presidents that have gone through the tenure process, and I have, that when you get that tenure process completed, I think it gives you credibility with faculty members whom you work collegial with. And so I would say it makes a better team. I will also say on the budgetary side, generally, I know of very few situations where presidents have gone back into situations where they were teaching. There are a few, no doubt. But having said that, generally those are paid through a central budgeting process, not through a department individually. So the concerns that I have seen or heard very possibly happen, but generally I think at the central budgeting process at a university, not necessarily the department. I would not want a department to be hurt because of my granting of tenure. And I do respectfully make those statements, but it is something that, as a faculty member myself, that I'm very proud of, and it's a credential in which I've earned.
Thank you, Brian. I would just, this is Don Martin, I would just say this. I think this policy, we're showing great respect for the tenure process. The tenure process, regardless if you got it in the state of North Dakota or outside the state of North Dakota, we're saying, hey, the tenure process is is really special, and we're going to recognize that. That would be my thought. I think it's a very positive thing that would, and it also, but if it helps us attract a higher caliber candidates, that's a real plus. And I think Brian makes a good point to have presidents that have gone through the tenure process. That's a plus for the state of North Dakota and for that particular campus. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
This is Dan Trainer. I think that this policy change fixes a potential equal protection problem. Currently, we have the ability to continue tenure or to offer it to an in-state North Dakota University system tenured employee when they're made president, but this policy only allows a change so that we can do it for an out-of-stater. And whenever you have policies that treat in-state and out-of-state people differently, that raises equal protection concerns, and I think this policy needs to happen as a needed policy change in order to be consistent.
This is important. Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I think that Dan has a good point there, and that was the first time when I was hearing about the policy that for some people it was valid, for others it's not. I asked if there's discrimination. I was told faculty are not a protected population. So for reasons of equity, yes, and I think as faculty I've never been aware that we have this policy for some presidents and not for other policies as president. And I've also never been aware, and it's another thing that just occurs to me now, that many of us are being awarded tenure by somebody who doesn't have tenure themselves. So, I mean, having the president who has gone through tenure may be a good thing for us. But I also like what Casey Ryan said about working with CCF on maybe changing the wording of the policy a little bit. And I'm wondering whether we could table it one more time to the December meeting and really make sure that the money that's being used is not being coming from the department but from some external source that's outside the university, and that it doesn't hurt some small unit. I think, well, for me definitely it would make a big difference. I'm not sure therefore whether you would agree with me on that, but that would take care of 3 or 4 of the points that the faculty has on their list. I think the first 4 or 5 maybe even, quite a number of those points, and would probably make a bunch of people feel more comfortable. And in any way, I mean, I really like Casey, I really appreciate whenever you say, let's listen to the faculty. So, I mean, thank you for that comment, and I think that might be a way to go to accept that yes, it will happen for reasons of equity, but write it up in a way so it doesn't hurt anybody. And yeah, thank you.
So this is a Chancellor, just to paraphrase then, the key thing is if a campus would have a president revert to tenure, it'd be recognized as a campus a supported position and not a department having to absorb this salary alone. That's the main change you would want. I wouldn't want to open up everything, but if that's the specific request you're making, I could see that being.
That is the main change. When I sum up the 4 or 5 topics that CCS came up with, it costs at least $500,000. It may cost us a faculty line in a small department that wanted to hire someone. So there were a couple of topics in there that might be saved if it's very clear by SBHE policy that no campus can dump people on the department. And I mean, I'd like to say that was central, that usually I shoot her emails in meetings, I forgot my telephone.
Mr. Chair, I just have I guess I don't really understand the concern of what it would get to the department level. I would assume that decision of where that financial burden would lie would be with the new president, and they would ultimately have the authority to dictate where this tenured faculty member goes back to. Nowhere in this policy does it state where the tenure is going to come from, and so I think without putting something in there, it actually leaves more flexibility.
Thank you. I also think there are some safeguards, and the state board still has to approve it. This is just giving the state board the authority to approve or not approve tenure for an incoming president that has 10 year. Am I reading it wrong? Am I reading it correctly?
Correct. The word is may. You're right. It's may. It doesn't say must or have to.
Yeah, so it's just giving the state board some flexibility to, so there are some safeguards. If there's some financial contingencies, if there's something that says we can give this person tenure, we can do it.
Chair Morton, this is Casey again. I don't think the problem is going to be on the front end of giving the tenure. I think the problem is going to arise if there are issues that come up. Let's just say there's problems between the president and the faculty, and the president is asked to step down, and then you say they have tenure and they're automatically going to be put into the faculty in an unhealthy environment. And so if there are other things there that allow the state board to step in and say, you can't do that, then maybe we're okay. But I think right now we do need to respect what has come from the Council of College Faculties. I mean, for appropriate reasons, I think they are bothered by the way this is written. I think that President Mitchell brings up excellent points, and as does President Van Horn. And I think we need to come to something that's written that can respect both sides, but also doesn't lock us into creating adversity, which we don't know, it may never show up. But if it does, it will be contentious at that point in time. So, I mean, in this one, we can vote on it, but I would make a motion that we table it, and if it's seconded, then we just have to vote on if we're going to table it to the next meeting, and then if it's voted against, then fine, we don't table it, we just take the vote today. So I'll make a motion that we table this until to be discussed with state board, discussing it with more completely with Council of College Faculties to make appropriate adjustments to what's been written.
This is Chris. There's currently a motion and second on the table for approval of the policy, so I'll have to address that motion before we entertain any other motions.
So you're saying I can't make a motion to table this when that motion is on the floor?
Correct.
Chris, with all due respect, I think that's incorrect. I think you can make a motion to table. This is Dan Trainer.
Absolutely, I can.
I don't agree with the motion, but I believe you can make it.
Thank you, Dan.
Chair Morton, this is Andy, if I may for a minute.
Okay.
I do think that this policy is a good direction to go to, but I do hear some concerns from the faculty and from the campuses. So I would have to agree with Member Ryan that maybe we should put the brakes on for a little bit and have a little more discussion about this. And I have two questions, and I'm not sure if I really should have the answer to this because I'm not a faculty member, but so help me better understand. So my question would be that if a faculty member were to come from another state and join the faculty ranks at NDSU or UND or any other campus with tenure, does that tenure automatically be granted as a faculty member? The second question is faculty or tenure at a faculty level at a campus. Isn't that typically a campus decision given by the faculty at that campus? So with those two questions, I would hope that maybe somebody can help me better understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I think Mr. Ryan was making a motion to table, and that needs a second, or it needs to die.
Yes, and Chair Morton, this is Jill Louders. I'll make that second that motion.
Okay, so moved and seconded that we table this. Is there further discussion?
Chair Morton, Casey again, not allowed to discuss the table motions. We have to take a vote to see if people agree to table it, or if we disagree, then we're back to the original motion.
Okay, could you restate the motion so that I have it clear?
Okay, the motion be that this be tabled until the December meeting, and in the interim that some members from the state board, including the chancellor, would have further discussion with the Council of College Faculties.
Okay, Christie, call the roll, please.
Mr. Hacker?
Yes.
Ms. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
No.
Dr. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Louders?
Yes.
Chair Morton?
No.
The motion did pass.
This is being like a general question here, since there are no more 8 members, but only 7. In the past, we needed 5 votes to pass the motion. Does that mean right now it's 4? It's a majority, right? And it's an uneven number right now anyway.
This is Chris. It would to pass a motion, you need a majority of the members that have been called in. So currently there are 6 members that are present voting in this meeting, so you just need a majority of the 6.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we will move on to item number 10.
All right. Thank you, Chair Morton. So again, for some of the new members' background, the board a couple years ago wanted to be more responsive to the different tiers of colleges, and the new governance committee that was set up worked through where we would break out the 2-year president's evaluations separate. Just want to commend the board for doing it, because in the time that occurred then, we had the election of a new governor, and workforce has become a massively important issue. And so this focus that the board is doing on the 2-year workforce issues is very timely. In fact, yesterday I sat through a briefing of the Workforce Development Council report that will go to the governor. And I want to commend the 2-year schools. They have an entity called CTEC, which is the College Technical Education Council. Their recommendations were adopted by the governor's task force yesterday. The governor's task force also endorsed the polytechnic concept, the dual mission, and these are all things coming out of the board's work on workforce. So as you'll see from the evaluations, they are all positive. These presidents have responded in the biggest budget cutbacks since I think one senator who's run the budget for years said probably since the Great Depression, almost an 18% cutback. Hundreds of reductions in force, layoffs, early retirements, and still built new programs, reached new levels of collaboration. 2 of the 5 community colleges have now broken in the top 25 in the nation on graduation rates. Let me say that again. 2 of our colleges out of 1,100 colleges in the United States are in the top 25 on their graduation rates. So, I've written, difficult evaluations in the past, and I've, it was a pleasure working with these presidents, and again, just want to commend them for the work they're doing. And with that, I would yield the floor, Chair Morton, as you requested, to let each of them kind of give some highlights of what they're doing and share any concerns for the 2-year schools, and that will include Jerry Migler, even though he didn't have evaluation because he's falls under Steve Shirley. But again, I'll yield the floor to them, and I guess we can just start alphabetically. And 2 presidents are traveling and on leave, which was earlier scheduled, Doug Darling and Larry Scogan, so their designated staff will speak at that point. So if Chair, if you're okay with that, I'll yield to them alphabetically and let them self-organize at this point, which I think that would be Bismarck. B.
Thank you. This is Dan Langen representing President Scogan. Just some of the updates since the last board meeting. We previously, cybersecurity 4-year degree has been approved by the state board. The Higher Learning Commission, they have an institutional actions committee that met the 22nd, 23rd, a few days ago. We're anxiously awaiting the final word on that. We expect very good news on that, but that will allow us to do full advertising and marketing for the new program if we are approved. Also within the last few weeks, we hosted 2 large conferences, one CyberCon with a infrastructure and cybersecurity focus, and then Empower ND conference, which is just that, wide variety of power focus for our state. Very strong conferences, and again, able to bring a number of partners to our campus. We also are continuing forward with a capital campaign to return our health science programs from a downtown external location back to campus itself. This program or this project hope to have these programs on campus starting next fall. And things are moving along very nicely with that, architectural renderings and then the remodel work that will be done. And then also enrollments have been stable. To headcounts are up about 1%. We are seeing more part-time students enroll, and so again, that's a trend that continues across many community colleges, and we are seeing that here as well. And then also, we're very pleased that next Monday, Governor Burgum's visit to campus. I believe he's attended or visited most of the campuses. We're up next, and so we're very pleased to have him on campus to visit with our great team, and really, frankly, just to show him our great facilities and programs. Some of the concerns that Dr. Scogan wanted me to relay, and certainly as priorities that we hope are considered as we go forward through the session and the work with the legislature. We're, as mentioned, the budget cutbacks have been very difficult, and we're doing as we can to move through that. And the recognition that there's a lot of sacrifice being done across campus, faculty and staff, and we hope that is recognition is out there. Also that the value that our employees, staff place on appropriate pay raise, and then also the generous benefit that we have with our health insurance. Those are strong priorities for our staff, our faculty, and we hope that will continue as the session moves forward. That is what I have for the...
Thank you, Delangang. Alphabetically, who's next? I know it's not Wilson.
Probably Dakota College.
That would probably be correct.
Well, good morning. This is Jerry Migler. Some highlights that I'm pleased to share with you. This is our second year of record enrollments here at DCB. Kind of echo what Dan had said. Even though we've reduced positions considerably, we're wearing a lot of hats, and I think we've become very efficient. But we have grown about 20% in overall enrollment over the course of the last 2 years. That's on both our head count and on our FTE side of things. Where's the enrollment coming from? It's kind of all over. If I had to pick one area, I don't know that I could really say it's specifically coming from one specific category. What we're seeing is our on-campus enrollment is up, our online enrollment is up, our dual credit enrollment is up. And those kind of comprise kind of the core areas that we look at. We offer about 130 online courses right now. And this fall, about 40% of our students are taking at least one online class. So they're not completely, totally online students. We have a lot of students that are taking the majority of their classes here on campus and face-to-face, but they may take an online course because that's one of the ways we've been able to leverage some efficiencies
as we've had to reduce some of our staffing. I would also add about over 90% of our online students, as we look at our data, have a North Dakota address, so they're primarily North Dakota residents. However, the remaining are all over the country. I think our last look was over 20 different states. So we have a strong local reach as well as a national reach with our online programs. In our early entry dual credit this fall, we're serving over 300 students across 40 different high schools. One interesting fact that you might be interested in, about 40% of our dual credit courses are delivered over interactive video. And again, it's another way that we're able to leverage some of our faculty expertise on campus to share with the local high schools. About 25% of our dual credit students are in online totally, and about a third are taking classes at their high school in which they're using a high school instructor who meets our faculty qualifications. And so again, both online and dual credit have been areas of growth for us. One thing that we're doing with it is unique, I think, within the system is our what we call our LEAP program. And stands for Leading to Education and Advanced Preparation. Essentially, what we learned was that we have a lot of dual credit students that will take a course, a semester, and they really don't have a plan. And so they might, over the course of their 2 years as a junior or senior, perhaps take 4 different courses, 5 courses. What we are doing is by packaging a certificate of 24 credits, encouraging them to start thinking about, let's put a plan together. And if they enroll in our LEAP program, we provide them with opportunities to visit with the faculty advisor and to start putting together a plan of studies while they're still in high school. And we started this last year. We had 7 students that completed the LEAP program. We thought it would take 2 years. We had some students that were very aggressive, and we actually attended their high school graduations and presented them with their certificates. This year we have 20 students that are in our LEAP program. So we think that's a good way of encouraging students to start thinking about their college plans earlier than it had in the past. Our nursing program for us has a record enrollment. We have our 3 sites. Here at Botno, at Trinity Health in Minot, and at Valley City State University. This fall we have 50 in the PN program, 40 in the ADN program, and we anticipate that there's still some opportunities to grow. I would put the flip side as a challenge for us is we do have at least 1 or 2 other neighboring communities that would like to have some satellite delivery, but the challenge there is in setting up the IVAN capability as well as finding the staffing. Really tough to do without additional resources. Some communities can provide it and some are not able to do that. But I think there's opportunity to grow, but the resource challenge is very much a I did want to highlight that in terms of our shared services, we really have a strong, as you might suspect, it's an affiliate campus with Minot. Some really strong partnerships in place. One of the most significant is the kind of the merger of our business office functions. Our business manager here is now a Minot State employee, and it has really allowed us to start mirroring our business practices with those of the university. The reason we did that was because of the turnover we were seeing in our chief financial officer position. And it was causing just a lot of inconsistencies. We needed to have more stability, and this has provided, it really has solved the problem I consider one of our home runs in terms of shared services. It isn't necessarily saving any money, but in terms of, as I said, the consistency, the stability, and just kind of the accuracy that we're seeing, it has really been a big plus for us. We continue to share payroll, Title IX services, Title IX training, institutional research support, right down to training services. Minot's a good host for all the courses and programming that we do at the university. One other partnership that I'd like to highlight is the partnership that we have with Williston State and Lake Region State College on the Northern Information Technology Consortium, where we offer technology classes that are difficult for all of us of that expertise.
but by combining our resources, we're able to identify courses that each of us can offer, and we package those primarily over Ivan, and it allows all three of us to offer a really solid IT program. We're exploring that with Ag right now, and we've had some really good conversations, and we'll probably be able to hopefully launch something very similar to that in agriculture beginning in the fall of 19. And in terms of some additional challenges, I should mention it's not necessarily a challenge, it's just a lot of work, is that we're preparing for our accreditation visit by the Higher Learning Commission for next year. We started our preparations last year. We're very much involved in that right now. As I think any of the other institutions would say, it's very time consuming, but we're embarked on that. Our nursing program is also embarking on accreditation with their accreditation agency, so we're very busy doing that. Some key concerns for us that are really specific to DCB are the challenges with aging residence halls and our dining center. We're putting some planning in place. I appreciate your support on our request for bonding. We simply have to start making some adjustments, and the bonding request will allow us, if we're successful in moving that through, to go ahead and relocate our dining center out of a facility that's not ADA accessible into one that is. And the last thing I would share is that we are looking hard and fast at our nursing facilities. We desperately need to upgrade those, and we're going to take some responsibility. Our foundation is on the front end of a capital campaign to raise a very significant amount of funding so that we could relocate them to our old main facility, which is vacant right now. But they would totally raise the funding so that we can make that renovation, convert that to a model for a rural health center, which we think we're uniquely poised to do. Okay, so I've covered a lot of things, so I appreciate the opportunity to share that information with you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Migler, and you definitely will want to read the Governor's Workforce Development Council, because rural nursing was one of the top priorities, so you might fit very nicely into that strategy. Okay, I think alphabetically, Lake Region, you're up next.
Good morning, it's Corey Kenner. I'm the Administrative Affairs Vice President, filling in for Doug Darling. The Chancellor did touch on this a little bit, but Lake Region ranked number 20 in the nation of all community colleges with our completion rate. We were double the national average. Our Precision Ag program ranked number 10 in the country by the Crop Life Precision Ag Professionals Organization. We had a record enrollment this fall, 2,072 students, 1,005 FTE. We've expanded our nursing program in Mayville and Grand Forks this year. And we are successful in a lot of areas, and our biggest concern is that the recognition comes in the form of another budget cut, and that's what we're really worried about. That's all I have.
Well, appreciate your brevity, but one other statistic I just would want to mention, that when I was looking at that Chronicle report that had those rankings, that I believe the community colleges in North Dakota have the highest success rate of transitioning your graduates onto four-year schools in the region, beating out Minnesota and the other ones. And if you add the dual credit students, we come out, and I'll have to double check, but I believe number 1 in the nation. Again, this speaks to the strength of our unified system, that students who come to a community college can then transfer on up into four-year schools once they get their credentials kind of in their pocket and they feel better. So those are some really important things to be proud of. But thank you for your brevity. So moving on to Wahpeton, NDSCS.
Yep, thank you, Chancellor, and thank you, Chair Ward, for this opportunity. We had Christy send the board a document entitled NDSCS 2017-18 Highlights. I won't take your time to read that to you, but just to highlight, our financial position continues to be strengthened. Our program and graduates remain in high demand. Our enrollments are steady. Our student success measurements are are exceeding national norms, as has been mentioned here, as well as they are continuing to improve. We did send 2 of our staff members off for professional development to be trained in lean methodology facilitation. They have since come back to campus. We've had upwards of 10 departments that have gone through the facilitation of lean methodology. This is our effort to find efficiencies and effectiveness within. So their workspace has been cleaned up. Their workspace is much more safe. Their work processes have been streamlined. They are much more effective and effective in these departments. The anecdotal, the indirect impact is the morale. They are much happier. They are excited about having been empowered to look at themselves and figure out ways that they could improve themselves in their processes. It's just been a good experiment for us, and we continue to spread that methodology throughout other departments across our campus. The Aspen Institute came in last spring. They selected NDSCS. We were one of 6 two-year colleges selected out of more than 1,000 to participate in what the Aspen Institute is putting together. It is their workforce development playbook. They came to us to pick our brains on best practices. That playbook is scheduled to be produced and published sometime in December. Partnership development has been a mainstay for NDSCS for decades. Business and industry partnerships continue to expand, as well as our partnerships with K-12. We're working even more closely with the school districts in Richland County here around Wapaton, as well as Cass County up in the Fargo, West Fargo area. As far as challenges, our primary challenge is enrollment. Even though our enrollments are steady, we have space available, seats available, and obviously the demand for the type of graduates that NDSCS produces is there. We are working with our K-12 districts, our regional CTE centers, to reach parents, to reach young people, to create those career awareness and career exploration opportunities that are vital for North Dakota's economic development. Student socioeconomic barriers. What we're seeing on our campus is an increase in those socioeconomic barriers. Students are coming to us with pre-existing physical, mental, emotional, financial situations that are increasing or decreasing their opportunity to be successful. We believe it's our role to help these students, provide them with the support and services that increase their opportunities to be successful, but that does take time and resources. As others have mentioned, we constantly look at our internal workloads, and they are continuously being monitored and adjusted where appropriate. With the budget reductions, we've had to change our ways. A lot of times that's been successful. In other ways, we're still working our way through some of those. And the last one I'll mention is aligning resources to maximize our outcome. That's constant even in the good times, and in the budget reduction times, that's something that we look at on a constant basis. And with that, Chancellor, I'd entertain any questions that you or the board might have.
Well, I just want to thank you, board members think of any questions, the meetings on CTEC that you have been convening, and congratulations that those proposals and recommendations were basically endorsed by the statewide committee yesterday. So also thank you for your volunteer spirit on that.
I'll appreciate it.
Okay, barring any questions, then Williston, and I just want to especially recognize Dr. Miller's work. He's an example of someone who worked his way up through the faculty in his career and was a provost, and then was willing to take on this position in very difficult times. Has had incredible amount of turnover due to the booming oil economy, and just want to commit here publicly that the state board did endorse trying to find ways to help you to stabilize your employment, and I look forward to you and Senator Beckedahl and others up there you know, and I know you're already with Vice Chancellor Dolan thinking through those ways, but I just want to thank you again for being willing to be in such a complex, difficult spot. So with that, John, why don't you reflect on your thoughts?
Thank you, Chancellor. Chair Morton, members of the board, greetings from Williston. It's a pleasure to take a couple minutes and talk to you. A lot of good things happening here, some challenges too, a lot of good things. We're still riding the crest of a 5-year increase in enrollment. It's basically been going on since 2014. This fall compared to last fall, we were up in head count 2.5%, FTE 5.5%. Those numbers are records for us for the fall. For the first time, our primary residence, Frontier Hall, was filled, and we kept it filled, so we haven't had a whole lot of loss. We're excited about that. One of the things that I think is a little bit different for us, because of the scholarship overlay we have for the regional scholarships, and then the Williams County Outreach Scholarship, those scholarships eligible, you have to be a full-time student, and so we're almost at 60% full-time students now on our campus, which is flip-flop from what you would expect at most community colleges. So it creates some more interesting dynamics, but certainly manageable. In the nursing program, we are pursuing our CNEA accreditation. We'll be starting that here shortly. We also added an expanded site in Tioga this fall for a nursing cohort. We're adding another site in Watford City that will start in the fall of 2019. So we're doing our best to regionally help with the needs for nursing folks. We have the people from NIMS here talking to us about apprenticeship models last week, and we had a combined meeting of all our CTE boards. It went very well, and they gave us a nice little push forward in further work with them to get a industrial maintenance apprenticeship strand set up to serve business in this area. We have our new train-and-D director that will be starting on November 13th, and I'm looking forward to working with him. I'm also looking forward to not being the interim train-and-D director. No disrespect to those folks, but it had me stretched a little bit. We also are finishing up the final interviews to select a project vendor for a P3 or public-private partnership project that would help us to renovate the Creighton building and finish off the renovations to Stevens Hall that did get funded going back to 2010 through 2012. We see this as a very viable way to really take most of our deferred maintenance and get rid of it and do it in a way that we board will appreciate and won't compromise our budget. So we're probably a week away from a decision on the vendor. On November 4th, we'll be at the NACEP meeting. That's the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships. We're standing for accreditation, and so that's a very critical time for us to actually sit down with our accreditation board and hammer out the final pieces of that journey. If we're selected, this is a pretty elite group. We'll join 107 other colleges and universities in the whole United States that have the NACEP accreditation, which is the gold seal, gold standard for dual credit early entry programs. So we're looking forward to that. We're just getting ready to open the spring schedule, and for the first time, thank goodness, we're going to be able to offer book rentals through the Wilson State College bookstore. That's really the first time we've been able to do that. We've had some logistical problems that have really put that timeline back, but this spring we will be up and running. We're also going full guns right now for recruitment for the fall. One of our strategies up here is we believe that we roll out scholarship packages and offers as soon as we possibly can to get high school seniors committed as early as they can. We had teams in 2 high schools yesterday and actually had 150 students register for the fall at Wilson State College. So we're excited about those numbers, and we're going to be pushing that really hard. We believe collectively that marketing is a big part of what we have to do to continue the growth at Wilson State College. As far as our challenges, I think we share the same one with a lot of our sister institutions. The health issues right now, physical, emotional, social, the mental related things, I think there's just a lot more students coming to us that need assistance, and I don't believe they're lacking in any ways. I believe the world that they grew up and live in is way more complex than the one I grew up and really live in right now. So that's an ongoing concern. The surge in the oil sector up here in the Bakken is creating more jobs, but it's also creating increased costs in living, in groceries, in fuel, and that's also putting pressure on the wage structure that we have to offer. And this has been going on for quite some time, and it's not going to be a surprise to you, but really our loss of employees continues to be a concern. Since July 1st, we've actually turned over 15% of the full-time employees at Wilson State College, and among those 15%, there's been 4 directors that we've lost. And so it's just the institutional knowledge and the learning curve that we have to face with new hires. It's a challenge, but we're up to those challenges. There's a lot of good things happening at Wilson State College. So if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And thank you for letting me talk to you a little bit.
Well, thank you, John. I got to give credit to Chair Morton. He insisted on carving out time to hear directly from all of you. So any questions from anybody or comments? I think you can see kind of the Chair Morton and former Chair Nessett's approach that there's a radical different world between Williston and Wahpeton, and we need to empower our presidents to adapt. And this board has been incredibly flexible, and you can see the range of the problems and challenges are very, very common in some cases, but very different. And they're doing a fine job.
This is John Moore. Let me just say on this, regards to John's last point about the challenges they have of keeping people and stuff. You and your team are right there. You and your team are the experts. I would really encourage you to do some brainstorming, come up with some ideas. These are the kind of issues that we need to address as a board, or to help you address as a board. Strategic issues that will move the needle. So I would encourage you to come up with some ideas that we can help you support and drive.
That was to you, John. Did you get that one?
Yep, I did. Chair Morton, thank you very much. The Chancellor's office has been very helpful, as has Senator Beckedahl, about doing some brainstorming. So I believe as we go into the session, we'll have a couple of ideas. And really, I don't, part of me doesn't want things to change, because if the economy is vital and growing around here, we're going to have that problem. But it's also better for us, and it's better for the state.
Well, I appreciate your patience on this. We understand. Thank you.
Chair Martin, this is Andy, if I may.
Okay.
It's great to hear from these presidents and the work that they're doing. That's really good information, and I'd like to hear more of that from time to time. That's really good information. Just 2 quick things about what Mr. Langang said and what Dr. Miller said as well, too, about employees. And I think that this is a competitive job market right now. So the fact of the salary and benefits is important, especially to those employees of the university system. So let's just, if I can ask, let's just keep that on the forefront, because I think that can be a very helpful recruiting tool for employees, and retention tool too for employees within the system.
Thank you. Chancellor, are we done with item 10?
That is correct, sir.
Let's move to item 11, track the update. Phil?
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. Just a couple of things that I'll touch on. After we briefed you on the Envision process in May and at the retreat, things are essentially moving forward. And there are a variety of studies that are going to move forward. For example, the one-of-a-kind course online delivery options that are being studied. Ag, for example, at NDSU, Energy and Law at UND. New models, the dual mission study, tuition flexibility, residency requirement study, incentive for completion study, and a big one, the financial mechanism for buffering higher education funding, which we'll partner with legislators. And then AI study on artificial intelligence. And as you may know, we're having an event on the 13th of November where we're going to have a discussion with some pretty high-powered folks about artificial intelligence, digital privacy, and those kinds of things, and how they will impact our students going forward. The other thing in moving forward in Envision, NSA Centers of Academic Excellence. You know, North Dakota is one of only 4 states that doesn't have any, and that's something that keeps us behind in those types of things, and we're working on them. But these are going to be, many of these things are already in presidential goals. They'll be tracked on the strategic planning online. We're incorporating the results of some of the Senate Bill 2003 task force outcomes. Vice Chancellor Dolan has incorporated those that require funding as part of the budget submission. And in the end, there are many others that are just moving forward because they didn't all require finances. Tribal college presidents have now attended one of the state board meetings. Dr. Davis was in Valley City, and that type of thing we hope to make routine. You heard a lot about collaboration among our campuses just a bit ago from the 2-year college presidents, cooperation with the K-12. Those things are moving forward in a variety of areas, including cybersecurity and cyber education, as well as the idea of locality pay for a place like Williston, where they're in a very, very unusual situation. So those things are moving forward. Presidents will update through the SPOL system as we move forward, and we can provide periodic updates as you desire. And that's what I wanted to make sure you got here under item 11.
Thank you, Phil.
And
item 12.
And Chair Moore, if I could just say one thing, and I've mentioned already, but some really unique things are happening on getting more resources for workforce and research. You know, the board once again was ahead. You approved a budget for $5 million for workforce innovations, and about 10 days ago, one of the legislative interim committees, I believe it was taxation, voted for, I believe, $20 million for high-demand emerging workforce areas working with Bank of North Dakota. So we may not have to have, we want to preserve our budget, of course, but there are clearly alignments between what the governor's been doing, legislators are doing, and just wanted to let you know that several things the board said to do are lining up well, I think, legislatively. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any questions from board members for Phil about the strategy update? If not, let's move to item number 12. Phil, Lumina.
Thank you, Chairman. One last thing on the strategy piece, in the Envision. That's been a 2-year undertaking. Like literally hundreds of citizens in this state participating, giving ideas, and coming from faculty members, faculty summit, student summit, all those kind of things. I just wanted to say, thank you to all those people, because I'm giving you the rundown, but this didn't happen by itself, believe me. And I just wanted to take a moment to say that. I'll jump right to Lumina, sir. The retreat, Lumina retreat, where they brought in hundreds of representatives from all over the country, just wrapped up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. We had a team of 6 including one of the tribal college presidents who went and attended that conference, and we should be getting feedback on that soon. We've briefed the Workforce Development Council Admin Committee twice on our Lumina efforts here. On the 14th of November, we're going to have a working group of stakeholders meeting here at BSC to work through and finalize a plan. We'll go back to the Workforce Development Council Admin Committee on the 15th of November, and then the plan is to brief you out on the 6th of December. We'll owe the final plan report and all that to the Lumina Foundation at the end of January. And that, our goal was always to put a plan together, and I think we're on pretty good glide slope to do just that.
Very good. Any questions of Phil? Hearing none, let's move to item 13, legislative update. Tim?
Thank you, Chair Morton. Since our last meeting in the office, we're continuing to prepare for the upcoming legislative session. One thing is we've interviewed for an intern or two college students that might be able to help us out attending meetings and tracking and doing a variety of things during session. We're not quite done with that process yet, meaning we haven't hired anyone, but we're working on that, and that'll help us internally. The legislative calendar is already starting on November 14th and 15th. We'll be attending the legislative management meetings, and at that point is when all of the interim committees report out to legislative management on what they've done over the interim. They'll talk about any proposed bill drafts that their committees approved. And so we'll be attending that, and we've already been tracking those committees and participating, but we'll want to make sure we understand what all is already going to be moving forward from those committees and add those to our tracking list. That should give us a pretty good start. And the bill that Chancellor Hegarott mentioned a minute ago that will come out of the Taxation Committee, that would be an example of one of those bills that we'll begin tracking. And then the next deadline coming up for the legislature is December 6th. That is the pre-file date where all bills that are going to be pre-filed by executive agencies in the Supreme Court have to be into Legislative Council. Right now, I don't think we have any on the straight higher ed side that we're looking at pre-filing. If we do, we'll be bringing those to you before we pre-file them. But we did hear from the Forest Service just yesterday. They have a couple of cleanup type bills that they'd like to introduce. So there will be at least those two bills that I know of that we will be pre-filing in December. Then, of course, just prior to that date, I believe it'll be on December 5th, the governor will announce his budget recommendation. So we'll be eagerly anticipating hearing from him that day. And at that point, then we'll begin strategizing for the session, which starts January 3rd. Are there any questions for me?
Tammy, this is Nick. Have you had a chance to reach out to Legislative Interim Committee Chair to find out what their intentions are from the Interim Committee for all the bills?
Chair Hacker, the Interim Higher Ed Committee?
Yeah, the Interim Higher Ed Committee.
Yes, already. They approved a few bills already that they will be introducing. One deals with they approved those at their Valley City meeting earlier in August, I think it was. One would be a study to look at the higher ed funding formula over the next interim, because there's probably time to look at that again. And there's been some ideas for maybe tweaking it a bit, and so they want to do a more long-term study on that. There was a proposal to increase the student needs-based grants to a much larger dollar amount than it is right now, by almost double. So instead of $975, I believe it is a semester, it would be $1,500 a semester. There's some funding issues in the way they drafted that bill, so I'll be working with them on that one. Continuing the other bill that I can recall was continuing the minimum amount payable section related to the funding formula, and they approved continuing that for this next funding meeting. So yes, we have those already on our track list, and we're preparing testimony actually in advance.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Tammy? Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
And we have student associations here. Are you ready to present?
Absolutely. Chair Morton, members of the board. Today I have a brief report on behalf of Jared from the Student Association. It comes in three parts. First, our General Assembly had the opportunity to meet about 2 weeks ago at Williston State College. It was a very productive meeting. Ashley Thornton was able to attend there, along with Vice Chancellor Dolan and Vice Chancellor Johnson. Tammy had the opportunity to present to one of our committees about the State Board's higher education recommended budget. So students are, of course, excited and ready to learn about upcoming issues that will be discussed during the state legislature. Our Assembly also approved a resolution supporting the NDUS's multi-factor authentication implementation efforts and encourages further collaboration between core technology services and students from across the state. So we're thankful for the level of dialogue that we're able to have with the NDUS with respect to multi-factor authentication. The second item of my report, I briefly mentioned last month, was that the Student Association has created a voting guide in an effort to help students figure out what steps are necessary in order for them to be able to vote in the upcoming November 6th general election, whether they're voting in the state of North Dakota or via an absentee ballot from another state. So a lot of student government associations from across the state have been sharing that with students, and the guide is available for use from others, and that can be found on our website, which is ndsa.ndus.edu. So the voting guide is available there for anyone to use. And the last item of my report is that the Student Association will be meeting soon on November 2nd and 3rd at Valley City State University. We are working on a few different things for that meeting. We'll be continuing our discussion and preparations with NDSA's 2019 through 2023 strategic plan and continuing discussion with respect to our concerns and priorities for the upcoming legislative session. So, meeting next week, and that concludes my report, if there are any questions.
Any questions of Jared?
No, but the comment by David. Are we on here? Okay. Thanks, Jared, for encouraging the students to vote and helping them to do so.
Thank you.
And also, Chair Morton, I just want to commend Jared Melville. He runs a very professional group, and they're thoughtful. They've been volunteered, a couple reps for the advisory group on digital privacy, which will be attending the event on 13 November. We've definitely got to hear from students, and I just want to thank him in general. Just very professional, thoughtful, and I know he comes under pressure sometimes to, change agendas, add items, and I just want to thank him again publicly for how he's running things.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any other questions or input? If not, we'll move on to item 16. Dr. Drexel, do you have an additional report?
Very shortly, we had our meeting on October 9th. We did discuss 605.1. We also talked about the Governor's Task Force on Higher Education Governance, and it just generally had an open discussion asking those 11 campuses felt about which direction that might or should go. Not any agreement at all on that. In general, it did seem like from the discussion that UND and NDSU are leaning toward the option of having their own board. The other schools seem to be leaning toward leaving things as they are with portfolios within the board. And that's not anything we didn't vote. It's not anything concrete, but that's the sense of where the comments were going with that. And we look forward to working with Tammy and the whole team with a positive, collaborative manner for the legislative session to hopefully work on things like salaries and retaining our benefits. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Chair Morton, can I respond? Chair Morton, can I respond to Dr. Dragsman briefly?
I don't know, Mark. I give you a minute to think about that. Okay.
Okay. Just to answer the question, that we have a study in the Chancellor's Cabinet on the subcommittee thing, just to let you know. So we're already working that idea, and I'd be glad to brief your group on that. So
Thank you.
that's all, sir.
Okay. Okay, item 16, Cole, Staff Senate.
Chair Morton, this is Andy. Cole was not able to be with us, but he provided me with a couple things to provide an update, and I'll do so at this time if you don't mind.
Very good, thank you. Please proceed.
So what Cole provided me was that the last Staff Senate meeting held in early October, NDSU, North Dakota State University Staff Senate gave a presentation and led the discussion to help other campus staff senate become more active and engaged. And basically what's happening is each campus is taking their turn, giving a brief update on what they're doing and kind of sharing some information. And, it's a great way to learn from each other. So that's a good thing that's happening in each one of the meetings. One of the task forces has been active. There's a survey task force that's looking into surveying different staff members, either as a collective whole. So that task force met and has been discussing some items of what to do. And the third thing that he provided was that the staff are thankful for Governor Burgum's executive order giving the 24th of December off that day, or that half day, I guess. So those are the three things that Cole provided. And just a couple quick things from me real quickly. I provided the updates to all the board members, and I'll let them speak for themselves. So I appreciate the opportunity for staff to provide an update to the board during their monthly meetings. Thank you.
Okay. I think we're at the end of our agenda. The next is there any public comment? No public comment? Let's move on to an assessment of the meeting and future agenda items. I thought the conference etiquette was reasonably good. There were some static in the background, but for the most part, I think it was very easy to understand the different speakers. I appreciate the chance to do this digitally. I am traveling, and this allowed me to participate in the meeting. Our next meeting will be, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not meeting in November, correct? Our next meeting will be December 6th, face-to-face in Bismarck.
Correct.
And I think in future too, when we don't meet face-to-face, we can certainly continue to leverage Ivan, and we can certainly leverage our conference calls too. Any input from any board members on assessment of the meeting or future agenda items?
Good morning, this is Casey. I just want to thank you, and I think you should use your discretion in deciding how we should meet, because obviously for an hour-and-a-half meeting today, it would have been a huge disruption for people to have to all be in the same place. And I know what we passed and said, but you're the one who is closest to the agenda. If it looks like a short agenda, maybe we don't even need to be together, Mark, because it is time consuming, and it can become a burden. I don't mind doing it when there's significant things to discuss, but when we have really a short agenda, it's not in the best interest of the higher ed board members and all the university presidents and people involved to give up so much time for such a short meeting.
Thank you, Casey. That's very good input. And we do try, when we aren't meeting face-to-face, to keep the agenda shorter. But there are pressing items that come up, like electing a new vice chair was important to get that done as soon as possible. So there are some different things, and then that allow us to not be too slow. So I think this works out good. Anybody else?
Chair Morton, I would agree. Go ahead, Dan.
Please go ahead.
Chair Morton, Dan Trader, when somebody sends out the calendar invite, could you put the call-in information on the calendar invite or the location of the meeting so that that's clear?
Makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
It does. I had to search for the phone number this morning.
Christie will make note of that, I'm sure.
Chair Morton.
Anybody? Yes.
Chair Morton, Nick Hacker, I'd agree with Casey's comments, and I'd also just like to add that I appreciate the consent agenda approach, and I thought it went really well today, and look forward to continuing that process in the future.
Thank you, Nick. And just a reminder, the consent agenda, everything is there for you to read, and we can take things, if there's something that a board member feels strongly about, like happened today, we can take it off the consent agenda. So we have that flexibility. But thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Chair Morton, this is Jill Louders. I really want to express an appreciation for hearing from the college presidents today or representatives. It's great to hear what's happening. I'm looking forward to more conversation about leadership development within those organizations. Appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you. Other board members? Anybody else on the line? Any of our presidents have any comments or input? Hearing none, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.